Hello everyone, welcome back to Virgo Sewing. Today we are going to be cleaning the body and I'm going to show you how to shine up some of those nice metal parts, and I'm going to be taking apart the bobbin winder fully to show you how that works. And I'm recording the audio separately because I find that I work slower when I'm talking and I really just like to get to it while I'm there. And between videos I just sort of clean the internal parts of the head plate, or where the needle bar and presser bar go. I cleaned those zigzag and stitch length levers, and I cleaned basically just those little areas where you can just get in there with alcohol and Q-tips. So to clean the body first, I'm starting with just a dusting off with a cloth, and I've just done that there. And first I'm testing whether or not I can use Gojo, because if your clear coat is damaged, you don't want to use Gojo because it can sort of soften your decals and it can damage them or silver them. So I'm testing it on an inconspicuous spot, and there's just one little oil decal there that may or may not get affected. And this try was successful. On the main bed of the machine, where the fabric in your hands might be, there was a lot of compromised shellac, and some of the black had been basically all gone along the edges of the machine. So I'm not going to use Gojo there, but I am just going to use it on the back here, on the back of the pillar, as people call it. So I'm just rubbing it on with my fingers, letting it sit for a couple minutes, and then wiping it off with a cloth. And you can see it removes all sorts of dirt, and then I go in with Q-tips just to make sure that I got just about everything. And I'm just using sewing machine oil there inside just to liven up that paint. So now I'm just covering the machine with sewing machine oil, putting a series of drops on an area and just rubbing it in with my fingers. And this is really the safest way to ensure that you won't damage your decals. If your decals are in really bad shape and the clear coat is gone, you can still use sewing machine oil, but just don't rub it too hard. This has not happened to me, but I've heard people who have damaged their own decals by rubbing too hard with sewing machine oil. But most of the time, sewing machine oil will do just fine. And I've let the sewing machine oil just sit there for about 30 minutes. And now I'm just rubbing it off with a cloth, and you can see it's picking up a lot of the dirt on the bed. And that's really what we want. And I put it on the arm of the back pillar too, just so it doesn't leave it too dry from that gojo. And if you want, after your sewing machine oil has been wiped off, you can leave it there. The machine will look good, and it'll be pretty clean. But on machines like this, I like to go for a little extra step. So after this, I'm going to wax it. So here is Howard Feed and Wax, which is a really nice product of carnauba wax, beeswax, and I believe orange oil, sort of made into a gel wax. And it's really nice because it hydrates your clear coat and your machine, and it leaves it looking really, really nice. I've never had any problems using it in terms of decals or clear coat. I would say that it's pretty safe. I've used it a couple dozen times now. So I'm just using it with my fingers and spreading it around. And once that is done, I'm going to let it sit there for 20 minutes. The bottle says at least 20 minutes, but I usually just do 20 minutes. And after that, you're just going to buff it out, and your machine will have a little bit more protection, and it will be looking even better. So it's about 20 minutes later, and I'm just buffing out, wiping off the feed and wax. And now your machine looks wonderful. So here, I'm taking the faceplate of the machine, and this is just my method. It might not be for everyone. A lot of people just use alcohol and Q-tips and sewing machine oil afterwards. But what I do is I use sewing machine oil and 4/0 fine steel wool first to scrape off all of the grime and oil and dirt, and it does a really, really, really nice job of that. Um, you won't really scratch your metal because it's so fine. I wouldn't use anything rougher. No 000 or 000 steel wool. And after that's wiped off, I put on some metal polish. I think you can use anything, but I've come to like Autosol. And I'm spreading around on an area with a Q-tip. And after it is done with the Q-tip, I will wipe it off, or buff it out rather, after letting it sit for a few minutes. Now, this is not completely buffed out. On those little uh, bits, little areas between the scroll, you need more with Q-tips to get it all out, but you can see even now it looks just beautiful compared to the bottom half of that plate. So here I'm taking apart the bobbin winder, and for whatever reason, none of my bits fit the bolt that's holding that little piece there that you see I'm struggling with. I'm not sure why. Maybe I just don't have that precise bits, or maybe Singer had some sort of trick around that where you had to use a special tool. But nonetheless, I just ended up using a pair of pliers to get it off, being very careful not to damage it too much. And we're just gonna watch as I take apart this bobbin winder, clean it up, and put it back together. The tricky thing about these bobbin winders is getting the springs back in their correct places. And I would suggest sort of separating all the parts with their springs and trying to remember taking pictures as to where they go. I've taken apart quite a few bobbin winders, so I don't need to take pictures at this point, but sometimes it does take me a few minutes to remember which way the springs go in their respective places.